What's up guys, in this episode I'm going to teach you guys how to turn in your quests. So right now we just have it so that you can accept your quest, kill these slimes, and then that's it. It's going to auto-complete, and we don't want to do that. What we want to have to happen is that we want some sort of boolean to check if we've completed the quest, and then if we have completed the quest, then we go and then turn it into a certain NPC. And now, we don't want to have to turn into the same NPC, because in a lot of RPG games, quest serves as a way to get from one point to another in a natural way. So let's say we had an NPC over here, we turn it in, or we accept the quest, and then she wants you to turn it in like over here to this person, so this forces you to go from here to here, and maybe there's like a new area for you to explore here. So that's why we want to turn into a different NPC, or you can do the same one if you want, but it's going to be based on the person you're talking to. And so that being said, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to know what NPC we need to turn it into, and then we need to know what NPC we are talking to. So let's first do the NPC we need to turn into, and we'll go over to our quest base. So we want to quest base because all quests are going to need you to turn it into a NPC. So we can go to public, and then we'll make a character profile, and then call this NPC turn in. And then we can go over to a quest to see what that looks like. So kill all slimes, the NPC turn in is right here. You probably want to make this a little bit fancier, with the spacing and whatnot, but for now this will do. And so you just click here and set Mel as the character we want to turn it into. For now, I'll probably change it in our example, but for now we can have it like that. And then we need to go over to our dialogue trigger, because that is how we know who we're talking to. Dialogue trigger. And so we have our dialogue trigger here, and we're going to make a public, we'll put at the top, public character profile, and we'll call this target NPC. And we can create a header here and just call this this NPC. We'll save that. And if we go over to our dialogue trigger here, we'll see we have a new little target NPC place that we can put what NPC that we're talking to. And so you can just click here, and we're talking to this character. And so this will let us know who we're talking to. Well, it doesn't do that yet, but we'll implement that. So now we have the groundworks for that. And if you're worried about like the disconnect of this character's sprite or character or whatever and the target NPC, what you could do is go into here and have a sprite set up so that the sprite will set the sprite data in here. If you set one, will affect the sprite that is shown, so that way there's never a disconnect between the target NPC and the sprite that's shown. However, this is not going to cover that in this episode. Maybe I'll do it later if enough people want that, but we're just doing quest turn-ins. So now that we have the groundworks, we can move on to actually implementing how we can turn in these quests once we complete them. Alright, so what we need to do is basically, now we have those two bits of information, whenever we complete a quest, we need to look through all the dialogue triggers with the NPCs, find the one that matches the NPC that we need to turn it into, and then have them somehow mark that that it's completed and that they need to say some sort of dialogue, and then pop-up appears after that saying complete quests, and then you hit complete quests and then you get the rewards from it. So how can we do that? So first, as I said, we need to look through a list of all the dialogue triggers, and so we need to create that list first. So let's go over to our game manager here, and we're going to create a list of dialog triggers. So let's just say public. We'll call this, we'll say dialog triggers, and then we'll make it an array, and we'll call this all dialog triggers. And simply in the wake function, we can just say all dialog triggers equals find objects of type objects. So we make sure that the S is there. If it's not, then it's only going to give you 1, and then because you're having an array, it's not going to make sense. So then we want of type dialog trigger, and then we can go over to our game manager here and wait for it to appear, and say whenever I hit play, it's going to gather all of the dialog triggers. So we're doing it like this, we're caching it away because we don't want it to do it every single time we complete a quest. We don't have to look through all of them, all of the objects in the scene. And so we're doing it once here at the start, and then all we have to do is look through the amount of objects in here, which is significantly less than all of the objects that are going to be in our scene total. So now that we have that information, we go over to our dialog trigger, and we can now have a public boolean and call this has completed quest, and we'll do a get set because we don't want to see this in the inspector. This is going to be set to true whenever we complete a quest, and we don't want to do that manually, obviously. And so if we do have a completed quest, what we don't want to do is call the regular dialog. We want to call some special dialog. And so we have to make another one. We can call this public dialog base. And we'll call this completed quest dialog. And then we're going to do another get set because we don't want to set this manually. And so whenever we have a completed quest, we'll say if we have a completed quest here, then we don't want to trigger the regular dialog. We want to skip all that, and we want to instead start the dialog of our completed dialog. So we want to know what our completed dialog has to say, so we can just throw in the completed quest dialog, and then we don't want to do anything else. We're just going to return out of here. So, and then we do one more thing. We need to mark that has completed quest as false so that we don't fall into an endless loop of doing the completed quest. So now that we have this, you'll notice that there's two problems. We never set this to true, and then we also never set the completed quest dialog. So let's go do that. Alright, so we're now in our quest base, and we want to, instead of just saying, hey, quest is completed down here, we don't need this anymore, but we'll just have it there. But basically, we need to look through all of our dialog triggers, find that NPC, and then mark it as completed. So, and then we also need a text here. So let's just make that real quick. Not only do we need the NPC turn-in, but we're also going to need a public dialog base and call this completed quest dialog. And basically this is what's going to trigger once we completed the dialog, though I'll probably change this a bit. We're probably going to want a specific type of dialog, like quest turn-in dialog, so that we can have the proper pop-up appear. So we'll just leave this here for now because this is fine, but we'll change it later. We'll just change the type later, that is. We'll create a new type and then change it. So we need to look through all the dialogues, and then we need to find the NPC we are looking for. The NPC that matches the NPC turn-in, basically. So we just need to do a for loop. So we need to look through all of the dialog triggers. So we can go to the game manager, and then we find our all dialog triggers, and do the length of that. And then this is how we search through all of them. Oops, not that. I is less than game manager instance all dialog triggers dot length. All right, so as long as I is less than the amount of dialog triggers in this list, or this array I should say, we're going to keep looking through. And then we say if game manager dot instance dot all dialog triggers dot, and we're looking for the do the specific array, and then this way we get access to the information inside that element. And we're going to look for the NPC here, target NPC that we created, and we're going to check if it is the same as the NPC turn-in that we have here. So if it does match, what do we want to do? Well, we want to then go to that dialog trigger, and then we want to then do the has completed quest. We want to mark that as true. And so now we've marked it as true, and then we also need to set the dialog. So we need to set the completed dialog, what's it called? Completed quest dialog, and then we make it equal to our completed quest dialog in here. So that's how we set that. And so now the last thing we need to do is we need to break out of here because we don't want to look through the dialogues anymore. We found what we needed, we set it, and then we can just say, all right, let's get out of here. All right, so now that we did that, we can go over and set this up. So let's go and look at our quests, and we have Mel here, and then we have, we'll create a new character. So I'm gonna create a new character real quick, and I'll be back when I'm finished with that. So there's one little mistake here, and it's that we can only check has complete quest if next on dialog interact, and not all your dialogues are going to move to the next dialog when you interact with them. So we have to create a new one up here and just say, all we need to do is check if we are in a dialog, and then if we are, we can do this, and we can get rid of that. And so it should look like this now, and basically now it will check if we are in a dialog. If we're not, then we will trigger this. Otherwise, we will just move on to this next part here, and everything works as the same. Alright, so I'll do a quick rundown on the quest. So we have our NPC Ashley here, and then we have our quest here, initiate slime quest, and then we go to kill the slimes. And so once we kill 2 slimes here, we're going to complete the quest, and we're going to need to turn into Ashley, this NPC, and then we need to, or then it's going to trigger the slime quest complete, and all it's going to say is thank you for killing the slimes. And so one thing we can do real quick is go over to our quest base, and we're going to have a debug.log, and we'll say we found, and then plus, and then the NPC turn-in, just so that you know that the quest is actually completed and that you found the NPC that you needed to find, and it marked it as complete. So let's go over and initiate our quest real quick, and we need to kill the slimes, and then we go kill these 2 slimes here. Well, let's go talk to her first. And she says, hey, I'm Ashley, have you killed the slimes yet? And so she wants to kill the slimes, and then we kill these slimes. And then in our debug.log here, it says, we found Ashley. And so now if we talk to her again, she says, thank you for killing the slimes. And then you talk to her again, she says, hey, I'm Ashley, have you killed the slimes yet? She goes back to saying what she usually says. You probably want to advance it to something else, but for now that will do. And so that's not very exciting, her just saying, hey, thank you for killing the slimes. Usually when you turn in a quest, you want something more significant to happen, like you get a little pop-up saying, hey, you complete the quest. That's going to be it for part 1. In part 2, I'll be going over how to have the quest UI pop up once you complete the quest, and then you'll be able to claim rewards. We'll be having items to be able to claim. We'll also do maybe some gold or experience, but until then, I'll see you guys next time. I'd like to thank my Patreons Van Helen, Seymour, Mars, Black Fox, Pale Blue Dot, Emerson, and Polybius. Thanks for being my Patreon. If you want to become one of my Patreons, you can go to patreon.com/devbird. Obviously, you don't have to, but every little bit helps. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.